Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the ARFUN Pro 95 featuring DYS 1104 7500 kV motors, F3 flight controller with an OSD, 20 amp 4-in-1 ESC, 600 TV line, 48 channel, 200 milliwatt all-in-one camera and VTX, 2-inch gym fan, 2035 props, has LEDs and a buzzer. Bottom plate's about 2 millimeters thick. Top plate's about 1.5 millimeters thick. The arms are very skinny. At the most narrow point, they're 3.58 millimeters. Has a JST connection. Comes with an Aurora 500 milliamp 2S battery. 2 extra set of props. An extra Velcro strap. Extra baggy screws. It's a Velcro for your batteries. It weighs 57.8 grams. I broke an arm. While this vehicle ticks a lot of boxes, I think they just went a little too thin on the arms. I didn't come down from a particularly hard crash. What I was actually doing was I was switching from 2 to 3S, because this does support 3S even though it just comes with a 2S battery. And I didn't lower my PIDs enough when I took off, and I was actually just doing a line of sight takeoff. You know, when you're tuning from 2 to 3S, you got to turn your PIDs way down or you'll get the quick wobbles and it will just skyrocket to the moon. Well, I didn't lower them enough. I only lowered them about 20%, and I probably needed to go half. But it oscillated and took off, and it didn't get above the trees by any stretch. But it came. I had to disarm in order to get it back, and when it came down, it must have hit this back rear motor, and it snapped it, unfortunately. And so that is the end of that review. I do have some flight footage I'll show you. I'm not necessarily thrilled with the tune on 2S. I'm getting quite a few hard oscillations on hard 180 turns. I do think it can be tuned a little bit better, but with 2-inch or smaller props, and when you're creating a lot of forward flight speed and then you hard 180 on a yaw and you bank, you tend to get a little bit of that. I just don't think we have enough prop and thrust in order to get us out of that. There's a number of things I do like this. I mean, essentially this is just a smaller version of Tomo Quad's CS110. So if you like something like this, I can tell you this one is a lot more durable. And you can run 2.5-inch props, and this thing is going to be a rocket. And of course, you can build your own, and you could run 4. Well, you couldn't run 4S on these motors, but you could do 3S. And this is a great vehicle. I fly this thing all the time, but you can definitely see the similarities between these two. I'm not sure why they went ahead with the tail, other than to maybe protect any sort of downforce that might come. I can't imagine, because you're just really close to having your motors. Maybe that's what it's there for. The tail will take that direct upside down impact if you come down a little bit rear heavy instead of the motors. I don't know. It looks like it's drilled out to have some sort of tiny SMA connector there for a VTX, but you know, we just don't have that in these vehicles. We have these all-in-one VTXs. You can see also here on my camera, let me grab my pointer. You can see some scuff marks on it. I had to take a tool to mine, and I was trying to refocus the camera. It came glued in. It came glued so much that when I tried to turn it with my fingers, and I used my little jar opening grip pad, which can sometimes turn them, that wouldn't do the job. I had to get a tool out, and you can see actually I had to apply quite a bit of force in order to get it turned. And what ended up happening when the whole lens assembly ended up coming away from the board, okay, fine, it's inconvenient, but so with it away from the board, I just took the whole assembly. I put 2 tools, a needle nose on one side and a semi needle nose on the other side, and then I just turned them, and I finally was able to get that glue loose. And you'll notice in the flight footage that we'll come to here that it's still not perfect. I don't know if I maybe inadvertently got some debris under there or something, but the focus is still a little bit soft, but it's not nearly as soft as it was. The camera came as though it was the focal length was like 6 to 8 inches away. That was clear, but anything beyond that was real fuzzy. And of course, that doesn't do us much good for FPV. I do think their camera mount is fine. It gives us a bit of up tilt. Of course, I would like to have a little bit more up tilt, but I think when you just have a static camera mount, you have to kind of find a medium amount of tilt for people who want to fly fast forward, and maybe people who want to do a little bit more freestyle with a little less angle. You know, you're trying to find a happy medium there, and you know, just a little piece of carbon fiber that doesn't add hardly any weight. So I think the camera mount's a good idea. The LED and buzzer on the back is just, you can see I've got some hot glue in here. There's a little carbon fiber tab that you see right here. That's just slotted in there, and I was very concerned that that would end up coming out and end up in the props. So I just went ahead and before my first flight just add a little bit of hot glue, which does increase the weight. You might want to do something else. Use some epoxy or something a little less so you can secure it in there and still keep the weight down. I like the fact that they used, you know, DYS motors. They've got nice props on here. But you'll notice, and let me direct your attention to the box up here, I had a couple issues when I was flying mine with 2S. Time and time again, I would get what would either be a VTX brownout to where the picture would just go out and it would stay that way for a few moments and then it would come back, but by then you already had to disarm, and maybe disarming was actually getting the power back to the camera. I don't know, but it happened battery after battery, not just the stock battery. It happened on my batteries here at home, and I tried several different batteries charging it and it would just happen. Now if I just cruise around, if I go real slow, kind of drive it like I just trying to get to A to B, I'm not going very fast, then it would be fine. But if I flew like I wanted to fly, I would eventually either get the VTX would brown out, or it seems as though I might get a receiver brownout. It didn't look like I got locked out like failsafe, but it would just fall out of the sky, like it would disarm. So I think we have a problem with this particular vehicle. With those two issues on 2S, I can't recommend it. Now, what I wanted to do, and what I ruined it doing, or broke it doing, was go to 3S. I thought, well, we'll run a little bit more voltage through there, and maybe that will remedy the problem. So we've got a 5-volt regulator in here that probably isn't keeping up very well. It's not boosting the voltage enough in order to keep everything running. Maybe we can take the LED and buzzer off the back, and that will free up some voltage to where we can keep the camera and the VTX, but I never got to that point because I wanted to go 3S to see if that resolved the issue before I dug in much deeper. Now, obviously, with the issues that I had, when it flew fine. I enjoyed my time with it. I think that they've got a nice feature set here. We've got an OSD. I'm always looking for OSDs. I do find that these cameras that have the 4 wires, 4 OSD, do tend to come unfocused. Straight from the manufacturer. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe you've had different experiences. If you had different experience with these cameras, leave that in the section down below. But I ordered 4 of these, and just about every one of them, the focus wasn't right. It was, the focal length was way too short. You know, for FPV, you want to, you know, at least 8 feet, if not 12 or 20 feet, the focal length. It depends on what you're looking for as a pilot, but you sure don't want it real close. You want your images to be clear when they're a little bit further away. And I've found that these cameras just don't come focused very well. Pre-focused very well, I should say. They did do something interesting. They used a different sort of coax here, probably trying to cut weight. That's just something I hadn't seen before. Maybe they're doing that on other vehicles that I just haven't seen. This is the FR Sky version. The binding process was a little bit wonky. I actually couldn't get this to bind with my modded Devo 10. It's running in D8 mode, so I used my QX7. And although the instructions state that you'll get a green light, the light I had on mine is blue, and actually when it was in binding mode, it would actually be solid. And the way I could tell it was actually going into binding is that solid blue light would go out, so no light, and then it would be in that no light status for a short period, maybe a few seconds, and it would come back on. And it wouldn't trigger the QX7 binding procedure to stop, so I would stop it. I would disconnect power, plug it back in, and then it would be bound up. So your binding with the FR Sky version may be a little bit different than you're used to if you're used to binding different FR Sky receivers. Something to note there. The buzzer's nice and loud. I like having a buzzer. I'm terrible at remembering where I went down, so I do like that they added a buzzer. I don't really care much about the lights because, well, I don't fly with others, but you might feel differently if you have friends that also fly. I think one thing that really kind of shocked me is they took the time to file down the edges. And maybe that's an automated process, but you can see hopefully that these edges, they've all been filed down. And I've heard about people who race doing that. And my understanding of that is it's for two reasons. It ever so slightly increases the aerodynamics, so instead of having a hard edge that the air is hitting, it just rolls off. And supposedly, it might make the frame a little bit stronger. If you've heard that, leave a comment down below. But I did some poking around online, and I found a few people talking about that as well. So I think it's very interesting they took the extra time somewhere along the manufacturing process in order to kind of round these edges down. Maybe that's easier to do than I think, but we just don't see very many frames come that way. I do think also that they could take these nubs and have them out just a bit further, just to give us a little bit of motor protection. If you do end up weighing a tree or a bench or playground or any of those things I have in the backyard, a little bit of motor protection might protect that bell and keep us from breaking a motor. But at 57 grams, that's not a huge concern. But we could bump out these front two corners just ever so slightly, 2 mil on each of these maybe only, and it probably wouldn't even increase the total weight of the machine, 0.3 grams. So that's something they could easily do, and it would help protect and increase our durability when it comes to the vehicle. I am going to show you some flight footage. It's not my best flight. I wish I would have had a bit more time flying it around. But hopefully, if you already have one of these, you don't have the experience with the broken arm that I have, because this one's done for. And if you're having troubles with it, I would suggest cut your PIDs in half, all of them, P, I, and D, just cut them all in half, and then use 3S batteries, and then start tuning from there. This did come with some sort of tune on it, but when I looked at the numbers, it seemed so odd to me. I didn't understand how that PID tune would make it fly very well. So I honestly, this isn't a good reviewer thing. I should have tried it. I didn't even try it. I just changed the numbers right away, took it out for some flights, and then I did some more PID tuning on it on 2S, and I got it fairly close to where I wanted it. Mainly when I PID tune, I'm looking for how does it fly. I don't necessarily try to get rid of all the prop wash, because on these micro vehicles, I've flown so many of them, it's pretty rare. If you fly them hard and you're doing 180 turns, or if you're going fast forward flight and doing rapid stops, we're going to get some oscillations, and we just have to deal with that. Maybe we need to get more of these in people's hands that know how to do a better job PID tuning than I do. But my experience is, if you increase your D enough to get the prop wash to where it's minimized, I've never gotten it to go away, the whole thing feels soft, and it just feels like you're swimming rather than you're flying. So I don't like it, that feel, so I leave the P's a little bit higher, and I like to have it snap and react the way I want it to on the sticks. But that's PID tuning. I believe there's a lot of personal preference in that. Okay, I've probably gone on too long about a broken vehicle, but there's a number of things I like about this. I just wish it hadn't have broke. All right, let's roll the flight footage. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave those in the section down below. And thanks for watching.